Football Friday in Oklahoma, another Homeland Hangout on Google and News OK from the Oklahoman studios in Oklahoma City. I'm Mike Sherman, sports editor of the Oklahoman, joined again by my distinguished guests, starting in the big picture from her swank apartment in Stillwater, Oklahoma, site of the big Big 12 game between Texas and Oklahoma State. Gina Mizell, our OSU beat writer. Hi, Gina.
Hello.
Joining us from his cottage in Norman, Oklahoma, also called New England, Barry Trammell. And joining us from her home in Mesta Park / Oklahoma City. Is it Mesta Park, Jenny?
No, it is not Mesta Park. It's Crestwood.
I told you that last week.
Crestwood. Well, she didn't. I'm trying to. From Crestwood, columnist Jenny Carlson.
Hey, everybody.
The Hangout is sponsored by Homeland. We're here to talk about lots of things, and we're going to start with the paddle people of Oklahoma State, who have now been banished or reduced by the Big 12 Conference athletic directors. Here to speak for the paddle people, or speak about the paddle people, first of all, Barry Trammell. Barry, what is going on with Oklahoma State's noisemakers as they prepare for the game against Texas this week?
I don't know what's going on with this picture of mine. I don't know.
We're protecting your identity. It's sort of like the FBI.
This looks like one of those Al Qaeda deals. There we go.
You're a little pixelated.
The ADs just this week voted to inhibit artificial noisemakers during the course of play, during a play or when the offense is at the line of scrimmage. They did this, they say, because of economic reasons, sponsorships. They've been getting a lot of questions from schools saying, hey, we got these sponsorship opportunities. People want to sponsor megaphones or sponsor thunder sticks or what's those things, during the World Cup we saw, those noisemakers.
Vuvuzelas.
Those things. They gotten a lot of inquiries. And they say, hey, we don't want to go into business with these if you're going to outlaw them. So they came up with a policy. They grandfathered in standing traditions, like the paddle people at OSU, like the bell at Texas Tech. I don't know what else is out there. But they said they can stay. They just can't play during the course of the game to try to affect the other squad. So that's what they say. Now, I think it probably has some political stuff going on too. West Virginia's coming into the league. West Virginia has a notorious reputation for being inhospitable to visitors. West Virginia, with a new start in the Big 12, says we're going to change that. I think this is a goodwill gesture by the Big 12 saying, hey, we're going to upgrade our hospitality as well.
So here it is on the eve of Oklahoma State's Big 12 opener. The last time they played a Big 12 game was against the Sooners in the Bedlam game. And Gina, how's this playing in Stillwater?
Well, I first caught word of it through Twitter, which seems to be how everything spreads these days. And I woke up to a bunch of tweets. One was from the Paddle People's, official account, and some other people were expressing their displeasure for a lighter word, I guess you could say. And it's like what Barry said. I mean, the impression or belief that, Texas went in and is trying to stop the paddle people and all that stuff. I mean, clearly that's not true based on what Barry has gathered and reported and all of that stuff. So, the thought that it's because of Texas and Texas wants to take away the home field advantage, that obviously doesn't seem to be the case. But, it does hinder a tradition, I guess you could say. I mean, obviously they can paddle all they want at certain parts of the game, but not while the opposing team is at the line of scrimmage or during play and whatnot. And it's obviously a huge standing tradition. I mean, I think the best example I can give is my 87-year-old grandmother, who didn't give a lick about Oklahoma State football until last season when I started covering that team. She asked me when I went home for Christmas, she's like, who are those people that smack the thing against the wall each week? So, I mean, even she notices it. So obviously it's a big tradition, and it's a decision that the Big 12 made, and now they're going to have to, I guess, cut back a little bit.
There for a minute, I thought you were going to say that she wanted to buy you an OSU paddle for Christmas or something.
No, not that.
Jenny?
She just wanted to what they were. That and the waving song.
Jenny,
So-
the paddles, like Gina says, everybody says they're a tradition. They're also somewhat menacing to the opponents. I mean, these people are leaning. It's the closest a fan base is to an opponent in the Big 12. Do the paddles work as a form of intimidation or distraction?
I mean, I think they add to the noise level in Stillwater, no doubt about it. I mean, I think the way the stadium is configured, where you have the wall and people are basically, sort of all cheering down into the field level, I think it all adds to the noise that is really, it gets really loud down there on the field. So that adds to it. I don't know how much it helps or hurts. I think anytime you've got a home field advantage, it all is cumulative. But, beating Texas on Saturday, just like beating OU last year at home or whomever, I mean, they're going to have to play well on the field. And that to me is key, no matter who you're playing. But obviously, the noise, all the noise adds to being part of the home field advantage.
Let's play conspiracy.
Guys, I talked to Trent Smith today, the former OU tight end. Told him about the rule. He didn't like it. He said he thought it was dumbing down the experience of playing college football, of watching college football. He said he loved going to Stillwater and hearing the beating against the wall and the people trying to throw him off his game. So, I think it probably does have an effect, but I think it also helps to get everybody in the whole stadium jacked up and juiced.
Yeah, but Barry, you also said that in our conversation this morning when we were talking about this, they've outlawed the cowbell in Starksville, Mississippi. And as someone who's been to Starksville for a football game, you said?
Well, I'm glad. If I go back, I'll enjoy the peace and quiet. I found the cowbells very annoying, but I'm a crotchety old man, so I don't know that I get to count.
Let's play conspiracy theory. Do we buy this idea that they're doing this because of potential sponsorships? You go first, Jenny.
I don't know. I think it's probably comes from the coaches that say, hey, we want a more level playing field when it comes to going on the road into some of these places. Maybe it has something to do with that, but I would think it would be more about coaches, maybe ADs saying, hey, we're trying, maybe we don't have this sort of thing at our home, and maybe they want to try to eliminate it, make it a little more even. I don't know. I'm sort of saddened that it's all going away. I've never seen a game in West Virginia, but you hear it's crazy there. It's not going to be quite the same without some of those things that maybe have been outlawed with this thing.
Gina, one of the things about college football, it's unlike any other place. You can watch even NBA arenas, NFL stadiums. There's a certain sort of sameness to some of these places. Not so in college football. You span the crowd almost anywhere, you know automatically where you are. Do we risk losing some of that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I'm with Jenny to a certain extent on that. And I'm sure that the sponsorship thing, I'm sure that played a role in all of this. But it definitely takes away some of the tradition and some of the uniqueness. And granted, it's like we said before, the paddle people will still be allowed in the stadium and will still be allowed to bang them against the wall when play isn't happening or when the opposing team's at the line of scrimmage. But you got to wonder, it's like, okay, is maybe that slowly going to go away if they can't use them the way that they want to or used to be able to or something like that. So, yeah, I think it does, hurt tradition maybe a little bit. But, I mean, I understand the coaches wanting an even playing field too. So I see both sides of it. But as far as the tradition in college football and what makes it unique, outlawing some of the stuff that you're used to seeing in the stands definitely, will play a role in hurting the tradition of the game.
Let's close on this topic by fessing up. In our former lives as fans, at some point we were all fans. What noisemaker, rallying device did you use or like or get your hands on or most annoyed by? Gina, what did they do out of Diamondback games?
Oh man, well, I used to have a rattle because they're the Diamondbacks, obviously, and I used to be a fan of that when I was a kid. But like you said, a lot of the pro stadiums, it's kind of all the same as far as you're just kind of loud. But my Arizona State student section days mostly just yelled. I never really had anything like out of the ordinary. I think I just kind of lost my voice and screamed a lot, and that was kind of my way of being noisy. So yeah, I don't really have any good stories, to be honest with you.
We're going to bring Jason in right out of the cold from his apartment in Norman, Oklahoma, and we're going to put him on the spot right away. Jason, in your former life as a fan, we know you were a fan. Mm-hmm. There's even a cheese head laying around on your office somewhere. I don't know if it made the move, but you got a cheese head in your closet. Have you ever used one of these noise-making devices to try to rattle the opponent?
No, I really haven't ever done anything like that. I have yelled a lot and done that sort of thing, but I'm kind of with Gina. I don't ever remember doing anything too crazy, too out of the ordinary as far as making noise. The one thing I do remember from going to a couple of games in Manhattan, Kansas years ago was I remember them blaring like Guns N' Roses and AC/DC right as the quarterback's going to the line of scrimmage. Does anybody else remember them doing that, or am I misremembering things?
I can't remember specifically, Jason, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I always thought that was crazy. And for the record, I think that the paddle thing is silly. I don't think they should do that. They shouldn't ban that. But
Jenny,
okay.
have you ever done thunder sticks, vuvuzelas, any of that stuff? Come on, fess up.
I don't remember doing any noisemakers. I'm kind of like the rest of these guys. I would cheer myself hoarse, but I wouldn't use any sort of noisemakers, which is dumb when you think about it. Like, why not? Why not use a noisemaker? Save yourself a little bit. But no, I think the thing that I remember most when I was at Kansas before I started covering teams, I'd sit in the student section at basketball games, and we do all this stuff to try to distract free throw shooters, do your hands this way and this way, and, get really quiet and then get really loud. But other than that, we never really had noisemakers for that. So, yeah, I think just basically the voice was the thing I used most.
Barry, have you ever made noise artificially?
I can't remember making noise officially. I don't remember ever even yelling at games. Maybe I did. I generally just watched.
Were you a crotchety old man before you were old?
No, and here's the general rule. I'm going to let myself, I can call myself a crotchety old man, but I get a little on the burned up side if somebody else does it. So I would tread lightly.
Why didn't you cheer in your youth? Come on, Barry.
I didn't see any point. I don't know. Maybe I had it. My wife's cousin played high school basketball down in Latta. And we went down and watched a bunch of her games her senior year. Maybe I yelled in some of those old gyms in southeastern Oklahoma, but that would be about it.
He did cheer with the Minko student section about 4 or 5 years ago. And Barry, what was that all about?
Right. They painted my face. That's right. I forgot about that.
What?
They painted your face.
Painted my face. It's in
the
archives.
There are pictures, Gina. There are pictures.
Oh, man.
It's in the archives of the Pubco.
You're watching the Homeland Football Friday Hangout. It is sponsored by Homeland. I'm here with our esteemed panel, Barry Trammell, columnist, Jenny Carlson, columnist, and our 2 beat writers for OSU, Gina Mizell in the big picture, and Jason Kersey. Jason, we should stop right now and say, last week, I have to apologize, I didn't make reference to your great art collection. And you had one last week, and I never even called on you to talk about it. What's over your shoulder today?
This is a picture of the presidents, all the presidents. I got it a couple of years ago at the Harry Truman Museum in Independence, Missouri.
How'd they get all those guys together?
I don't know. Hey, great question.
We're off the topic of artificial noisemakers, although I will admit to using a vuvuzela before it was ever called a vuvuzela at old Baltimore Colts games. It was just a blue horn, and it could really make some racket. Tons of people used them. Now we're on to the big OSU-Texas game, onto the field, and J.W. Walsh's big moment. We'll start with you, Gina. Listen, Texas chose David Ash in 2011 over J.W. Walsh. We'll find out, I guess, on Saturday in some sort of weird set of circumstances whether Mac Brown chose well and what this game could say about Mike Gundy's future quarterback choices. Gina, you and John Helsley have tried to school us on this idea that there will be no quarterback controversy from Oklahoma State, regardless of what happens on Saturday. Even if J.W. Walsh makes the most of his big moment, are you sticking to that?
Yeah, I am, and I don't think it's any, knock on J.W. Walsh. I don't think it's anything personal. I think it's just that they're so committed to this air raid spread offense, and no matter which way you slice it, Wes Lunt is the best quarterback on the team right now to run that system, and that's what they're recruiting to. That's just what they really believe in. And again, it's no knock on J.W. Walsh, but they had a version of J.W. Walsh a few years ago named Zach Robinson, and by the end of his career, he was so beat up and he was so just not able to play to his full potential that it was kind of one of those things where it's like, well, if your quarterback's not healthy enough, in the 12th game as they were at the beginning of the season, then is it really worth it? So I think just because they're so committed to running this spread system, it won him a Big 12 title. It launched Brandon Whedon's career, and they believe it's going to do the same for Wes Lunt. That I really, even if J.W. Walsh goes out and plays great against Texas, or however long he plays or doesn't play or what have you, I still think this is Wes Lunt's job. Barry,
chances what could happen on Saturday could lead to a quarterback controversy in Stillwater?
Well, 100% if OSU wins, there'll be a controversy. Now, I think Vinegar Bend is right. I don't see OSU going away from Wes Lunt just because of style of play and style of quarterback. But anytime you win a big game and produce, like I think J.W. Walsh would have to if OSU wins tomorrow, then all kinds of people, including coaches, would say, hey, what do we have here? So, I think there'll be a lot of good discussion in a variety of ports if OSU wins that game tomorrow. But I do agree that, the decision's been made. It's just, it's clear that Wes Lunt is best suited for this offense.
It's another Football Friday. You're watching the Google Hangout, sponsored by Homeland from the News OK studios. We're talking about Oklahoma State, Texas. We're talking about J.W. Walsh's big moment. But before we go on, Barry, I have to put you on the spot. You just called Gina Mizell, our OSU beat writer, Vinegar Bend. What, for good or for bad, we all know what that's about. But for anybody new to the Hangout, why do you call her Vinegar Bend?
Well, it's just my nickname for her. It's a tribute to my old friend Joe Garagiola. On the Game of the Week, used to talk about old-time baseball players all the time. About once or twice a season, he would trot out the name Vinegar Bend Mizell, which was Wilmer Mizell was a major league pitcher from Vinegar Bend, Mississippi. So his nickname was Vinegar Bend Mizell. His life spiraled out of control when he left baseball, and he became a United States congressman. So, it wasn't all peaches and cream, but I thought, when I met Vinegar Bend, I said, somebody named Mizell, what else am I going to call him?
Now, no relation, by the way. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, but yeah, no relation to.
Does anybody else call you Vinegar Bend? Is it caught on, Gina?
No one else has calls me that on a regular basis, but I have had actually quite a few people ask me why, because it's been dropped in situations like this, or I know on the radio, Barry's maybe dropped it when mentioning me or whatever, and so it's come up and people say, why is that his nickname for you? And so then I kind of explained what he just did. So no, but as far as actually calling me Vinegar Bend, that honor only belongs to Barry Trammell, which I'm perfectly okay with.
And now while we're on the Barry Reader's Digest version of the other nicknames for panelists, start with Jenny. What's her nickname?
It's not as good of a story. Her nickname, I call her J.G. Whitfield, but it doesn't have a great story.
It doesn't?
No.
What is the story?
Her initials are J.G. Carlson, so I just started calling her J.G. Whitfield. The only person I ever knew named J.G. was a guy named J.G. Whitfield. So that's where that came from.
Who was he, Barry?
Gospel singer, right?
He was a gospel bass singer for the Florida Boys.
What's so interesting is these two, esteemed colleagues of ours. They so much remind you of a washed-out baseball pitcher who became a congressman and a gospel singer, both men. That's, dead on.
I didn't say that. I didn't say they reminded me of him. I never said that.
And then we got Jason's nickname, which is more pedestrian.
I call JK's his initials. I call him JK McKay, which, college football historians will remember him. If you don't, then I got no help for you. JK McKay was John McKay's son, played flanker for USC on those great USC teams in the early 70s. Pat Hayden's right-hand man, and still is. Now he's an assistant athletic director at SC with Pat Hayden. So he's J.K. McKay.
Do I have a nickname?
I call you boss. In the same way that Jim Ignatowski called Louis DePalma boss on Taxi, that's what I do.
Okay.
Now, whether that means I remind myself of Jim Ignatowski or you remind me of Louis DePalma, it will go unsaid.
Now let me.
And this afternoon, people will be looking up Taxi reruns on YouTube like crazy, trying to figure out who these people are.
Barry, the first time you appeared on the Hangout, the first time.
Arizona. I was in Arizona.
I think there's
I was actually in Vinegar Ben's neighborhood, literally.
Yeah.
You were.
House.
Now, what I'm going to say about that and this Jim Ignatowski and Louis DePalma scenario, I think the answer might be both, because that day you came on, you looked like Christopher Lloyd from the Back to the Future episodes.
I did fix myself up to some degree today. I was hoping someone would notice.
I did, and thank you. Now, let's get back to the show. You're watching the Football Friday Homeland Hangout here at News OK, and we're talking about Oklahoma State, Texas. We're talking about the quarterback controversy that may be or could be. And Jenny, somehow or another, there's a football game on Saturday. Let me ask you this. Who did you pick and why?
I'm picking Texas. I picked 35-31. I think it's going to be a really good game. I really do. I think in the end it comes down to J.W. Walsh not having that vertical passing ability. That's really the long stuff that can stretch the Texas defense. I think he's going to play well. I mean, I think he's going to run it well. I think he's going to throw the short stuff pretty well. I think he's sort of got that gamer thing going for him. But I think in the end, not being able to stretch the Texas defense is going to be just enough for Texas to win on Saturday.
Jason, who you got?
I picked Texas as well, and I picked him 38-24. I think I was by far the one who picked the biggest or the widest margin of victory. I just think Texas has looked really good through the season. I know a lot of people question how good Ole Miss is, and that's probably fair, but I think they went on the road to an SEC team and won that convincingly. I think that's impressive. And I don't think there's a quarterback controversy. I don't think there's going to be one because I don't think OSU's going to win. But even if they do, I don't think there's a quarterback controversy either. I think they've made their decision and it's the right one.
Gina, is Texas this good, and who'd you pick?
I also picked Texas. I'm with the rest of my colleagues, but I picked them pretty close. I picked them to win 27-24, and I think really this is about as good of a matchup as you could have asked for J.W. Walsh to play in, given that he plays that you could, because Texas defense, they're aggressive, they want to come after you, and if they if those defensive ends pursue, or those linebackers come on the blitz and J.W. Walsh is able to get out of trouble, he's going to be able to make some plays with his legs. So I think he will, with the extra practice that he got, with Wes Lunt being out, I think he will play pretty well. But I just think that it's kind of like what Jenny said. He just doesn't have the arm. And I think that this defense has not proven really anything yet based on that kind of debacle in Tucson. So I think they'll give up some points, and I think ultimately that Texas wins by a field goal. So I definitely think Oklahoma State can win this game, but I think Texas will win in a close one.
Barry, isn't the debacle in Tucson, as Gina referred to it, just the ultimate factor in the way people see this game? Isn't it that people's thoughts about OSU are framed by that game?
Well, that game and the lack of Wes Lunt. I mean, I think I'd have picked OSU if Wes was healthy, but the combination of JW sort of getting baptized, and also the meltdown we saw in Tucson, where they really just didn't stop anybody, then, I just couldn't pick OSU. I do think it'll be close. I do think we know all about Mississippi. They stink. That's what Mississippi does. Now, it's nice that they went on the road and won big, but Texas has not been tested. This will be a test for Texas as well.
I picked Texas in a close game, but Barry, percent chance that Wes Lunt plays on Saturday. Let's just go with everybody. Lightning round. Percent.
1.
Gina.
I'll say 3%.
Jason.
0.
Jenny.
I'll go with 5%.
I'm going with 5. Now we're on to the Sooners. We're talking about quarterbacks. Who'd have thunk it? A year ago at this time, Landry Jones was thought of as a Heisman candidate. I said on this set that he was a Heisman candidate. He's not within a country mile of such a thing. Jason, what has happened to Landry Jones?
Well, Landry Jones just continues to make some poor decisions and bad throws and poor decisions that he's kind of made at times over the last couple of years. And so, no, I don't think he's a Heisman. I know he's not a Heisman candidate. But having said that, I've gotten a lot of emails and seen a lot of things that they need to just go with Blake Bell, and that's silly. That wouldn't do any good. That wouldn't really do anything except make things worse for OU this year. So I don't think that that's the answer at all. But what's happened to him, I don't know. He made a lot of bad decisions. And he made a few bad plays, and they lost the game largely because of him last week.
You're watching the Football Friday Hangout here at News OK. Is anybody else hear that big thumping in the background? And is there any chance that's the OSU paddle people standing at the gate, lodging their protest? Can you hear it?
I heard it.
It's either that or it sounds like one of those snow walkers from Star Wars that our man K-Man was so fond of a couple years ago. That one's for you, K-Man. Okay, Barry, Landry Jones, is he the biggest problem in Soonerland?
I'm going to have to say yes. The defense has played okay, been pretty good, really. Hasn't been overly tested, but they played okay. The offensive line didn't play all that well at UTEP, but I thought played pretty good at Kansas State. The running game's been okay. The receivers have come along pretty good. Landry Jones has been awful against Kansas State. So, when your fifth-year senior Heisman quarterback is the one that's screwing up, I don't know where you go from there. So the Sooners have got to figure out how to get Landry Jones effective again.
Jenny, how could it go so wrong so fast? And is it possible that Ryan Broyles is so great that Landry Jones' success depended all on him?
Well, I think losing Ryan Broyles last year during the middle of the year was clearly an issue. And remember, at the same time, they lost Dom Whaley. So in basically a very short amount of time, Landry Jones lost his two biggest offensive weapons. And so I think clearly that there was some impact on that last year. But I was surprised, knowing that he had all spring, all off season to work with these guys that he now has. I was surprised to see him be so ineffective against K-State. And there were times that he would start to hit guys, start to really look like he was going to get in a rhythm, and then it would just completely fall apart again. So the inconsistency was really surprising to me. I think he is developing some chemistry with Kenny Stills. We've seen those numbers go up on his catches. So I think that that's maybe building, but it's clearly not consistent, and that's the thing that's wild to me. The turnovers are obviously troublesome. You can't have those, but the thing that's been just I can't quite wrap my head around is just how inconsistent he has become, and where that comes into play as a fifth-year guy. It's really shocking to me.
Not to stir up bedlam discord, but I feel the need to bring up something Todd Monken said last year, and I'll read it. Or actually, he said it this spring. It didn't take long when old Ryan Broyles went down and Oklahoma started running Blake Bell to think, do we have our guy? That didn't take long. Landry Jones went from like, I'm the man, to all of a sudden, I haven't thrown a touchdown pass and I'm fumbling over my head at Oklahoma State. I got to go back and see my quarterback guru. Those were the words of Todd Monken. Vindication be thy name, Todd Monken. Gina?
Well, I mean, first of all, you got to know, like, Todd Monken speaks his mind. I think we all know that. And, to a certain extent, I think he's right. I mean, the way that he maybe delivered that wasn't quite how he intended it. But, I mean, I think it's just showing that it can't just be all on the quarterback. Obviously, last season when Ryan Broyles went down, just like Jenny said, that obviously changed things dramatically as far as just not having your number one target. Much like I think if Justin Blackmon would have gotten hurt in the middle of the season last year for Oklahoma State, that would have changed things for Brandon Weeden. Now, I'm not saying he would have, not thrown a touchdown pass in the last 4 games or whatever it was, but I mean, you lose your number one target and that changes things. But I think I'm with Jenny on this one, in that I am surprised that with going to George Whitfield, with having the spring and summer workouts and preseason camp, that there hasn't been, a chemistry or an effectiveness established with those new receivers. So, it's surprising to see what's happened to Landry Jones. Obviously, I don't follow him as closely as Jason or as Barry and Jenny do, but as kind of an outsider just watching that game on Saturday from my couch, it was pretty shocking to see just how poorly he played. Not just, I think Barry made this point on Monday that even if you take away all his turnovers, you take away the fumble that turned into a touchdown, you take away the interceptions, he still didn't play well, just because he was throwing balls behind guys and miss Brandon Green in the end zone and all that stuff. So it's been pretty surprising just to see how he's regressed as a fifth-year senior.
Speaking of takeaways, I should point out here that Todd Monken did attempt to take away some of the sting of that statement by apologizing for it and really sort of clarifying that he made them in the context of a conversation with an ESPN reporter's questions about quarterbacks' confidence and the importance thereof. I think he was trying to illustrate that what happens when a quarterback loses his confidence. It seems like Landry Jones has a confidence issue right now. Speaking of confidence, let's switch one last topic. Let's go with basketball. The Thunder opens camp next week. They're back. The first time we've seen the men in blue since the South Beach of Miami, Barry. What's your confidence level that a year from now at Media Day, James Harden will be there for the Thunder?
Moderate.
What do you attribute that to?
I don't think they're going to sign him to a max contract. So I think James Harden's going to have to decide. Do I want to play for $12 million in Oklahoma City or $15 million in Phoenix or someplace? So he's got to decide. I think the Thunder's decided. They can't give him $15 million a year. The price tag is too high on the luxury tax. So the ball is like it is often when Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant are on the bench. The ball is in James Harden's hands.
Jenny, how could James Harden leave it all behind? He's got this culture he's a part of, this team in the city. He's a cult figure. Him and his beard are cult figures, and he's working the line at Raising Cane's Chicken in Edmond. You can't get that kind of deal in lots of towns. Why would he ever want to leave such a thing?
Do they have Raising Cane's in Phoenix, Gina?
They have one in Tempe. I saw one when I went home.
There you go.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second, Gina. Jenny, chances James will be here this time next year.
I think it's pretty low, honestly. I think there's a possibility. I think there's a chance he gets back here for these preseason camp and preseason practices and is around these guys and remembers what a cool thing they got going here. Ultimately, that's what he's going to have to decide on. Does he want to remain here and play with this team that he's been a part of since he came to the NBA that looks to have something pretty special going, or does he want to go somewhere else and make more money? I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. And I can't answer that for him. Nobody can. Only he knows. The Thunder have had several guys that have faced that question. Russell Westbrook, he could have gone somewhere else, maybe made a tad more money than he is, and he decided to stay here. Kendrick Perkins, same way, could have tested free agency. Ultimately, that wasn't something he wanted to do. Will James Harden? I don't know. The only guy that's ultimately that they wanted to keep that said I want to go somewhere else is Jeff Green, and he no longer is here. So I think it's ultimately up to James. What does he want to do? And I don't know the answer to that question.
Gina, you're given the choice as an innocent bystander, but not an unbiased bystander, being from Phoenix and being a lifelong Suns fan. But here you are in the great state of Oklahoma. You make it your home now. Would you rather see James Harden stay with the Thunder or in a Suns uniform?
Well, I think it comes down to, like Jenny said, what does he want? I mean, because the best opportunity for him to win an NBA championship and to be a part of a great team is to stay in Oklahoma City and to play for the Thunder. I mean, that's pretty clear. But which team needs him more? The Suns absolutely need him more. I mean, after letting Steve Nash go and just, I mean, the rebuilding process there is in full swing. So they obviously have the money that they could offer him a max deal. And again, people love him in Phoenix. Arizona State fans love him. He gets, a big ovation every time he goes back there and plays. He had one of his best games of the season in Phoenix this past year. So obviously there's a big comfort level there. But, it's hard for me to say. I mean, honestly, I think I'd rather see him stay on the Thunder because
finally you answered. You were going to try to avoid but finally we get. I was getting ready to object and say the witness is avoiding the question.
I would rather see him stay on the Thunder because that would give him the best chance to win an NBA title and play with better players because the Phoenix Suns are a mess. And really so without Steve Nash.
Showing your true colors. You value the Arizona State connection more than the Phoenix Sun connection. We'll end with Jason, who once upon a time was a coordinator of Thunder coverage for the Oklahoman. He worked on the desk, and he sat through many meetings in which Darnell Mayberry and Mike Baldwin and I argued about Thunder stories. Jason, does he stay or not?
I lean no. I don't think that he will. I think that he'll go somewhere where he can make more money and maybe be the star. But it was interesting. He was the sixth man of the year, and he sounded very willing to play that role and be the sixth man and do whatever it took to win. And I think that if he really wants to win championships, he needs to stay where he is. But I don't think he will. And I think that the Thunder. It was way more important for the Thunder to re-sign Serge Ibaka. And they did that. So.
Barry, you buying that? Do you think it was more important for them to keep Serge Ibaka than James Harden?
Oh, depends on who they're playing. I mean, again, Ibaka's needed more against certain teams. Your good friend Harden's needed more against certain teams.
Well, and
I think you can argue it both ways. And the big difference I see in the two discussions is the chemistry and the relationship that Harden seems to have with Durant, to me, is fairly significant and interesting. I don't know that Ibaka has forged the same relationship with the franchise cornerstone.
We forged a relationship with you, our viewer, at these Homeland Hangouts. We're going to end it right here and say thank you for joining us on Football Friday. That's all for this Homeland Hangout, but you can stay with the best coverage team anywhere, every day at News OK and every morning in the Oklahoman. Thanks, guys.